I'm going to treat this like you know nothing, so we're going to just basically start with some mise en place stuff, some knife stuff, what you need to have as far as your smokers. Want to know what you guys have at your house. We're going to kind of go around. So I'm going to basically treat it like you guys have very little knowledge, and if you don't, if you have questions, just raise your hand, stop me, whatever you need. But let's kind of go around the room. Just start from here. Give me your name and tell me what kind of smoker you have, and if you don't have a smoker, what kind of one you would like to have, or your dream smoker.
I'm Gene Mealy. I've got a Masterbuilt 30-inch I bought a couple months ago.
Okay. Jim, around me, see.
My name's Darren Keels. I don't have a smoker, but my grandpa has like an old school, like homemade built one that I would like something like that.
Okay. Cool. All right.
Roger Neck, and I'm a beginner.
Okay.
Amy's dad.
Right. Okay.
I have to decide whether I'm going to begin or not.
Nice. So you're still looking at smokers, or whatever Amy tells you to get. Yeah.
Yeah.
Andrew Martin, I don't have the patience for barbecue or baking, but I love to do both. So nothing right now, but hopefully I'll either have yours. And
Exactly.
If I can't buy your old one, I'll probably get an egg to start, just to have something to start with.
Green eggs are great ones. That's what he said when he says an egg. It's called a green egg. If you don't know, it is. It's a ceramic cooker. They come in multiple sizes, from a large, extra large, extra large. I think they're even coming with a triple extra large. They're huge. The great thing about those is that you can utilize. Perfect. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. You can utilize a fan on it. It'll hold a temperature for 13, 14 hours. I'm talking with like about a 7-8 pound bag of charcoal. And we're talking keeping 275 at 12 hours. It's pretty impressive. Around here, you know, when I moved up to Rapid City, South Dakota, my wife's going to business with, said the weather was going to be very similar to Houston. I was like, oh, good. That's awesome.
Sure.
Hot in the summer, a little bit chilly in the winter, but no big deal, right? I guess it's the same here as in Rapid City. When I got it, it was -5 degrees. It's a freaking Thanksgiving, and I'm trying to smoke hams. I never felt that cold before. So, green eggs are great because they don't allow any kind of heat to escape. When they stay hot, they stay hot. They can get up to 800 degrees, or you can smoke at 180. So that's a very good smoker for this area, because at -5, and you're not losing temp. The wind will pull everything out of a Traeger. It'll pull everything pretty much out of anything, but that green egg will all still be cranking along. Go ahead.
Gavin Porter. I've got an egg, but it's not one of those fancy ones.
A Komodo or some kind of a ceramic.
Yeah. That's the one,
Same thing. Yeah.
So it was given to me by the wife,
Nice wife.
Suzanne. So I'm learning how to use it.
Okay. Well, like as we go through the class, and if you guys got questions about, you know, your specific smoker, we can either do it on a break, or if it's important to you, just pop your hand up and I'll answer your question pretty quick. Go ahead.
My name's Derek Murray. I've got a Weber charcoal grill, but with a smoker insert.
Okay. I've got a Weber that's probably one of my favorite. You have to understand, I've got grills and smokers like my wife's got purses. So I'm one of them that's coming here this week. I'm actually going to probably try to pawn off on somebody and get a different one. But yeah. So, but the Webers are great because they hold temp really well. You can just move them around. You can use them as a grill, and you're not going to get as long a cook out of them, but you can smoke some of the best ribs I've ever had come off of a Weber, because you can do a 3 to 4 to 5 hour cook on those things. It's going to taste incredible. So that's a good unit. Go ahead.
I live in an apartment and don't have any kind of smoker or grill, but I'm probably going to be using my parents' equipment. And my dad's got, I think it's a 30-inch grill, Masterbuilt, and they've also got a electronic smoker that uses water and chips, like wood chips.
Sure. Those are good. You might want to look at getting a welding blanket for that. Welding blankets are great for those little electric kind of chip smokers. They're usually kind of a thinner sheet metal, but you can get a welding blanket that'll wrap around that sucker, bungee it, and you're doing great. because you're not because the wind, believe me, will suck it out, but you won't ignite and you won't hurt a welding plank.
Well, we're also doing it down in Georgia, and it doesn't get all that windy down there most of the time.
You're good then. Okay.
It stays nice and hot.
Nice. Yeah. When you like when I was living in Texas at Christmas, when you turn on the fireplace for the ambience and you turn on the air conditioner at the same time. Yeah. Just because you want to feel, oh, it's Christmas, we got a fire going, and we have the air conditioner set at 69. Go ahead.
Ron and Colt, I got a Masterbuilt 30-inch luxury.
Okay.
Ben Colt, I don't have a smoker, but
You gotta get your dad to hook you up, man.
Yeah.
He looks like a nice guy. Go ahead.
Dominic Gold. I don't have a smoker, but hopefully after this class I'll start looking into some.
Good. And I was talking with the students. You know, I love Craigslist. I mean, things that you can buy. You can be smoking something by next week and spend $50. Okay. I mean, I have a friend that's got probably one of the best smokers I've ever seen. And he went down. You ever seen these places? You're driving down the road and they got about 100 refrigerators standing there, and they got dishwashers and dryers. One of the best smokers I ever saw in my life was a heavy-duty old refrigerator. Has one of those latches on it. Drilled a hole in the bottom, drilled a hole in the top. Little drip thing. Made a blast shield out of it. Cost him $50. Starts a little fire at the bottom. It's one of the best smokers. I mean, he's still smoking. I mean, he's got money. He's such a cheapskate. But he loves that smoker. He hangs the sausages that he makes in there, hangs all the stuff in there. It's a great smoker. It costs him $50. So things you can do. Look on Craigslist. You can buy a little one of those just like an old what do you call them? Those ugly drum smokers. You get a drum smoker for a little bit of nothing. You can outfit that. There's little kits online you can buy for them for almost nothing to get them going. So you don't have to spend a lot of money to start. I learned a little New Braunfels sheet metal piece of junk, and I cooked some of the best barbecue and learned how to use it. So whatever you got.
George Goebel, and I also do not have a smoker.
Hopefully that'll be changing soon.
Glenn Melodic, I have no smoker, but I know what to get and what not to smoke.
Okay, good. Yes, sir.
Shannon Lang, I don't have a smoker.
Okay. Is your wife wanting you to get one soon? Hopefully after you taste the food here, and you're like, you've never tasted brisket like that in your life, and you're like, I gotta get one. Because basically what I am is I'm a drug dealer. I'm like I sell crack brisket, and I'm gonna get you addicted this evening, so that when you're gonna leave here tomorrow, you're gonna be like getting the shakes, and you're gonna be like, I gotta get a smoker. I gotta get some of that brisket again. Okay. So you guys can be with me afterwards. Yes, sir.
Greg, he's got a Weber smoking.
Good. That's a good unit. Is it a 22 or an 18? Good one. Okay. My brother's got the same one. Old fashioned? Old fashioned. Those are the best kind. The white-haired man in the back.
I'm Nick, and I don't even know what I have. I have a Louisiana grill pellet for part of my cooking, and then the other one I bought off of this drug dealer out front.
It's a nice smoker. I think I got like 7 grand championships with that one. It was a good one.
Bob Stanfield, Deep South Smoker, G6.
Good smoker.
Bryce and Masterbuilt.
Okay. Good one. Okay. All right. So we have the whole gambit of smokers, from no smoker to I want a smoker to we got exactly what we want, and it's dialed in. Anything that you're doing as far as in cooking, you want to make sure that you want to start with basics of culinary. Some people have a lot of experience. You guys are welcome. You guys have to introduce yourself and do a little dance since you're a little late. So that's okay.
I apologize for being late.
No, you're fine. I just want your name and what kind of smoker you have. If you don't have one, just tell me what you guys want. We're looking at.
My name is Russ Radliff. I have Weber Smoky Mountain, 2 of them.
Good. Good one.
And I've done 2 competition rooms.
Wow, cool.
Neither one of them KCBS and the PNWBA.
Okay, good ones. Yes.
This is my wife, Corey.
Corey, glad to meet you.
I guess she owns my smokers too.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Is this a community property estate? Oh, we'll talk about that later. Okay, so you want to start with, I mean, some of you've got no culinary skills, some of you have great culinary skills, but you always want to go back to the basics. When we're talking about anything that we're doing as far as from cooking tuna casserole to a brisket, you want to make sure things are in place, mise en place. Things are put in place, put things in the right order. You don't want to have a lot of clutter. You want to keep your workstations clean. You want to make sure you're starting in the right direction and not just going helter-skelter all over the place. So it starts with the best ingredients, the best things that you can put into a dish. I like, when I travel, I like to look around. I mean, I don't know how many people travel here, but if you're a college student or you're just, retired, travel. I like to travel. When I go travel, I try to find the coolest little meat market over here, or like a little spice shop over here, find out what you're doing. We were in Seattle, and I was walking around Pike's Market, and I found this incredible kind of a five Chinese spice that they had mixed with some of their herbs up there for duck, and it was incredible. I had such success with that spice. I couldn't imagine. I would have never found it if I hadn't been traveling. So when you're traveling, keep your eyes open for cool things that you can do, but you want to find the best ingredients, from fresh herbs to fresh salt. Don't go in your spice cabinet and you've got the same can of thyme that your grandma had that she gave to you about 10 years ago that's sitting in there, and you're going to use it for your new brisket that you just spent $50 to $150 on. Get good spices. I mean, most stores these days have an organic section or something. They're going to have good stuff. You can order it online, but find the ingredients that we're going to give you tonight and the things that we're going to do. Try to find good fresh ingredients, from your meats to your spices to your sauces. Okay, that's what we're looking at. When you're thinking about where to get your meat, a few years ago, Sam's Wholesale, they started looking at doing some stuff with barbecue. They sponsored the KCBS Barbecue Association, and actually they've donated, they basically allocated a lot of time and money and effort to start their own little competition tour. So now, in turn, they carry about everything you would ever need for a barbecue at your house or a competition. They carry all 4 meats that you would use, charcoal, from even buying a little smoker there, to the seasonings, to the spices. I can go in there and win a competition, just use it and never walk out of a Sam's. Okay, just walk out of a Sam's and never go anyplace else. So that's a great outlet. If you've got some local meats places around here that'll get you some briskets, or a guy that raises cattle, or however you're going to get them. I know I have a friend that's going to be competing tomorrow. He's got this secret place where he gets his briskets. I've tried hiring private investigators to follow him around, and he gives them the slip. But he's got this brisket, this guy that does his briskets, and he won't tell anybody about them. I really don't like him that much, but he only gets it, and he'll only get a few a year. But when he uses them, he wins. So he's got a good quality place where he gets his brisket. Same thing with you guys. From your chicken, if you can find like where I live, there's a Hutterite kind of a community over there. There's Mennonite and Hutterite. They do these crazy off-the-hook chickens. Find your meat market guy. He usually can get you in with that. Use a fresh chicken. There's no reason for you to buy a chicken that's hard as a rock that's been sitting in a Safeway for the last 6 months. Okay? Use good ingredients. Use fresh ingredients. Use quality ingredients. Okay? Next thing is having quality tools. Getting a good smoker, learning how to use your smoker, the heat management. All of those things are important, but you want to have something that you get, that you're comfortable with, and you use. If you're a hunter, you got to be comfortable with your rifle. People always say, what kind of rifle I should get? Well, get used to one that you can shoot with, and then you move up from there, but you want to be able to be comfortable with that rifle. Same thing with the woman, if she likes a car or her purse, it's whatever you're comfortable with, but learn to use it and use it properly. The other thing would be your tools. Again, not only your smoker, but your knives. And I always say, you don't have to spend a lot of money on knives. I always try to tell people those big blocks of knives that they have at Costco or at Sam's, on sale at Christmas time. You'll use maybe 2 or 3 of those knives. A lot of them are redundant. You won't really need them that much. But what you're trying to do, and I'm sure most of the people that know or that are chefs in this room will tell you. I mean, if you look at my knife roll here, I've got a $15 or $20 Victoria Knox. Get on most any store or any Amazon for my boning knife, okay? And then I've got probably a $400 Shun cleaver that I use today to chop up goat. So I have things that I use, specific knives for, that I will use, and that are great knives. Now this particular knife is going to be a stamped blade. It's going to lose its sharpness, so you have to be sharpening it all the time. Something like this, a Shun boning knife, I'll use this and it keeps this blade. It's got a 16-degree edge on it. It's made of forged steel and it's an incredible knife. $89. It's a good investment, okay? But my point would be is buy one knife at a time. I find some of my best deals on eBay. A used knife, somebody just is like, I don't know why they're selling it, but keep your eyes open. If somebody asks what you want for Christmas, I want this specific knife, and you tell them exactly what it is. Like this knife here is a sushi knife. It's got a beveled edge on one side, it's flat on the other. I find it's great for using for brisket, because when I'm going to take this brisket and I'm going to take all of this little membrane off here, I want to keep it flat to the flat side of the brisket, this lean part, and I want to be able to take off that membrane, so that it's nice to be able to keep that knife flat and you have a beveled edge on one side. So that this knife can be invaluable when you're using it for brisket. So find knives, find quality knives that you can use for specific purposes. Sometimes, you know, I have a proclivity for buying stuff online, and it's just my little, I have to have that, you know, I gotta get that. So I bought a salmon knife I've used one time, but it really worked the one time I used it, and it was great. It cost me a little bit too much money. My wife wasn't that happy, but she liked the salmon, so it was good. So, point is, get good tools, get good knives, and keep them sharp. Invest yourself. If you know you're not going to sit there and use a stone, then buy yourself a nice electric sharpener that's got a diamond edge, not that it's going to rip it, but something that's going to be a little bit extra money and won't harm your knives. So you want to have good quality tools, and then so many things in barbecue are going to be timelines, temperatures, and very specific temperatures. When you're looking for very specific temperatures, especially on brisket and your pork, and like a turkey, things like that, you want to be very careful about that, because you don't want to make anybody sick, and you also, if you're competing, you want to win. This is about $89 to $102, depending on where you get it. It's a digital thermopen. I'm going to pass it around so you guys can see it. I've had a couple of them, I've had a few of them. I like this one because I can't lose it sometimes, because I can see it everywhere. I had a black one that's really cool, like a black chef coat. I lost it. So I like this color here. They've got pink ones, they've got green ones, they've got white ones, they've got ones with the Denver Broncos on it or the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, but I recommend that specific thing for temperature of your meat. You can use it for candies, you can use it for chocolate when you're melting whatever, you have to have specific temp. That is an invaluable tool to have. So, we're getting into, we've got our smokers covered, we know what we want or we don't, what we need. We know that we need to keep our areas organized and clean, and we know we need to have good quality tools. Okay, so, came here to learn how to cook barbecue. The king of barbecue, when you're looking at anybody that's in, if it's a backyard guy, the guy that's on your street that bugs you, that thinks he's the best that's ever walked the planet and can grill and barbecue anything, or you just want to show your dad how to eat brisket, it's going to be, the king of all of these is going to be this thing here. It's called a whole packer beef brisket. Okay? Whole packer. We are not buying flats. That is not, they're basically almost the same exact price, but you don't get the best part. And when we break here in about 45 minutes, and we start cutting up this lovely Texas-style brisket, you're going to understand what I'm saying when brisket can taste like prime rib or even better than prime rib. And people look at me like I'm crazy. It won't be the last time tonight, trust me. So, whole packer brisket, you can get them at Sam's, Safeway, Costco, but you want to make sure that you have a lean side and then a fat side, just like this. I mean, it's got to have a big old fat side. If you've got it, and you'll see this part right here is kind of cut off. They've cut off that point. Well, that's one of the best parts of it. Okay, you want it to be a whole packer brisket. Okay, does everybody understand that? It's very important to understand this. Okay, if you see how I'm holding this, I'm holding it like, well, not like that, like my little baby here. All right, why am I doing that? I'm protecting the seal of this cryo bag, because we're going to talk about aging this brisket. When you do what's called dry aging, which most of you probably cannot do, dry aging is where you take a piece of meat, you completely control the humidity in an area or a room, it has fan ventilation, and you can dry age it as it loses moisture and gains tenderness by its breaking down the proteins in the piece of meat. Okay, so you've got to have a special unit. You've probably been to a high-end meat market or in Vegas where you've seen these big things of meat and this big glass unit, and it's got these really crusty looking meats and they're aging it out. You probably can't handle that, but you can do wet aging. So wet aging is when you've got a cryovac piece of meat, and you don't want to wet age chicken, and we'll get into that later. But common sense will probably say that, but with brisket, you have a large piece of meat that you're trying to break it down and get it tender. So brisket you can age. How many days you guys think brisket can age? Just give me some days.
At least 30.
30 days? Okay.
A couple weeks.
Got a couple weeks. Keep going.
At wet aging, would you go 2 months plus?
Some people go 60 days, at least. Okay? If you have been very careful with the preparations here, like if you have these little spots, I'm going to do this because I'm going to open it up. But I don't pick up my brisket and go, okay, it's time to come in from the car. Come on, kids, oh my God, quit doing that, you crazy sucker. Okay, no, you're holding this like this. You want to hold it like this. You do not want to grab the edges of it because it's a little bitty hole and you're SOL on your brisket. Okay, so we want to be careful about the seals, but you can age this. I would probably, for you guys, because I don't want to freak you guys out, 40 days is fine. You got, 40 days from now is going to be, what, beginning of November. You're going to have a big, I'm a big Texas A&M fan, so I know Texas A&M is going to be playing, my arch rival LSU, or that is crazy T-subs from UT. So I know I'm gonna have a bunch of people over, so I'm gonna get a brisket and I'm gonna age that sucker 45 days. Okay, stick it in your outside fridge, so one that you're not gonna be opening up that much, something that you can stick in the back corner and don't touch it. 45 days go by, open it up, you wanna kind of wash it off, pat it dry, and you're good to go. Okay, but 45 days will not hurt anybody. 60 days is getting a little bit tricky because when you open it up, it's gonna smell pretty musty, but it'll probably be still okay. But for you guys, 40 to 45 days. Usually pretty good. I like getting my briskets at Sam's because there's high turnover. They're moving their stuff. I mean, I can walk into a Walmart or a Safeway or a grocery store. The next week, the same freaking brisket's sitting there on the counter, okay, or in the little case there. So I just like the way Sam's does it because they're moving it. They're moving. Costco's the same way. They're moving their products, getting it going. So brisket's a very, very good piece of meat to age. So what we're going to try to do today is how can we cook it? And we've got, anybody know where brisket is on a cow? It's basically right here. The Arnold check. Yeah, right here. Big pecs. It's what the cow gets up and down. It's what he's flexing all the time, getting up. Okay. Now, does anybody ever raised cows or had cattle or seen horses, has been around horses before? A lot?
You know, ridden horses.
But have you been around them like for days on end and you've watched their habits? You've seen how they move, get around, get up, get down, things like that? Anybody?
With horses.
Horses?
Cows.
Okay, horses are going to be very similar. I don't eat horses, but they're very similar. If you got a horse or a cow, okay, and say he's injured his right front hoof, okay, and he's laying down, you'll see that cow lean over to his left and protect that right hoof. But when it's time to get up, he'll move over and push off with that right side every single time. Horse and cow, exactly the same. So what happens when you're about 1,400 pounds and you're pushing up every time you lay down with that right side? There was a movie out there one time, this crazy Mexican guy. I can say crazy Mexican, my mom's Mexican. But this Mexican guy, he was like working out with that right arm, and his left arm was skinny, but his right arm was like Arnold, you know? That's what basically a cow's doing. He's flexing that right side, flexing the right side. And yeah, they're moving around, they're using the left, but that right side is going to be just a little bit more muscular. So, what is the right hand, what is the left hand brisket then? Why? So, is it a big deal? I think it is. Some guys will tell you no, but when the crunch time comes down and you're at a championship and it's a one bite barbecue and you're against the existing world champion here in Missoula, Montana, there are no atheists in the emergency room, okay? We're all praying to somebody, and when you got that close of a competition here, I'm telling you, you're going to want to try to get every advantage you can to win. You're praying to somebody, and you're trying to get that left-handed brisket. Okay, so
it's more tender. Sorry.
It's a little bit more tender. It's not been used as much. Now I'll tell you this: I've cooked right-handed briskets and a left-handed brisket at the same time. The right hand's been better, but it comes from different cows. So you want to look at marbling, but if you have identical marbling, identical the way it just feels like that's just moving around, what are you going to do?
You're going to get the left hand.
I'm going to get the left hand.
How do you know which one's left and which one's right?
Good question. Okay, left-handed brisket. Okay, say you have, see this fat side? You can always tell. And you have a lean side. Okay? All right? So I'm going to put, and you have this kind of what's called a point up here, and you have the flat. So I'm going to lay the fat side down on the table like that. Mm-hmm. This point is pointed back at me, and whichever way this thing flares out, it's a right side, this is a righty. Okay? So I'm going to bring it around before I open it up. You guys can see. So it's pointed towards you, fat side down. Where's that flare? What side is the flare coming to?
It's on the right side.
Right side.
Right.
Everybody see that?
That's the inside of the handle.
Yeah.
That's the outside.
Right.
Gotcha.
And everybody see this little edge right here on this brisket? People get so worried about this. They're like, oh, look at that crazy side. It's going bad. This is actually a steam mark from the processing, okay? Right here, this part right here is actually from the steam when they process the animal before they actually carton them up and butcher them. Okay, so the point is pointing towards you. Flares to the right. Everybody see that? Point's pointed towards you, fat side is on the table, flaring over. Got it?
Yep.
We've got point pointed towards you, fat is on the table, square. That means the grain is coming this way. Okay? Everybody got that? You see that, sir? Everybody got it in the back? I hope so.
I was confused.
Okay, so
Quick question before we move on
Yeah.
to breaking it down. If you were dry aging it, how long would you dry age the brisket?
Well, you'd want it, if you're dry aging it, you'd want it to be pretty fatty for one. You'd want it prime. I wouldn't probably dry age a choice.
Just
I'd really probably want it to be a Wagyu or Kobe because you want a high fat, because then you want to weigh it. When you're dry aging anything, before you dry age it, you want to get it's going to come out, you're going to take your Sharpie on top of the fat,
yeah.
you're going to mark on it, what are we going to mark on it? The weight and the date.
Okay.
Okay? Didn't mean to shock you there. Kind of, he's like, he's trying to call me my dad. My dad's gonna kill me now. I'm not learning anything in school. Okay. No, but it's the date and the weight because what's gonna happen when you're dry aging it?
You're gonna lose
losing moisture. You're losing moisture. You're not losing moisture when you're wet aging it, but you're not getting the same feel. I mean, like if you're going to Luger's in New York, and one of the best steak places you'll ever go to. The best $500 probably ever spent. Well, it was that one. No, okay. It was good money, and it was good steak. So you want to take, we can answer questions on grilling steaks later too at the end if you guys got specific questions about prime rib or steaks. But right now we're going to do brisket. But they had a dry age there, but their stuff is prime plus prime, incredible stuff. But if you're going to dry age it and you have a little spot in your garage with a fan and it's winter time and it's about staying in ambient about 35, 34 degrees and you can keep it nice and dry and cool in there, which you can around here in the winter, it wouldn't be a bad idea. But I wouldn't do a choice, I'd do prime. Okay? Any other questions before I open this baby up? Okay. So now we are going to trim this brisket. So we're going to just pop this thing open. Does anybody know what styles of barbecue there are out there? California is not one. Okay.
You mean how many different?
Yeah, like the.
I mean, we're talking like Memphis barbecue.
Memphis.
Boom, Memphis.
Carolina.
Alabama,
Texas.
Texas. But yeah, Texas was
Kansas City, right?
Kansas City. Okay. So, Memphis is more about their ribs, a dry rub. They're known for it. They're more. There's probably my least favorite, but it's still good. If you go there, you gotta try it. But it's basically about their ribs, spare and baby back ribs, dry rub. It's okay. So then you've got Kansas City barbecue, and they are very, very famous for their brisket called burnt ends. And what they do is a burnt end is where you take the point, the really fatty part, and you detach it from, after you've cooked it for a while, you detach it from the flat, and you cook it, you season it up again, you sauce it, you stick it back on the smoker for another hour and a half, 2 hours, and then you put it in these cubes that just melt in your mouth. That's called a burnt end. So Kansas City is very famous for that. Carolina is more about their pigs and their hogs and things like that. So they do a lot of whole hog shoulders, whole shoulders, butts, things like that, and they're very much famous for that. Texas is known for their brisket, and I'm going to serve tonight. Probably, I think we can all get. I mean, we've got enough people probably for one brisket and all the pork. I've got a couple extras just in case, but I got one Texas brisket I did for the students. So we've got Texas brisket, and they're known for that tender, melt in your mouth brisket that's just going to be incredible. That they use salt and pepper, a little garlic powder, very simple, and it's wrapped in a butcher paper. So those are your basic 4 types of barbecue. So when I start trimming this up, there are some fatty parts of the brisket, like it's called the deckle right here. It's a very hard piece of fat. Okay, if you do enough cooking, it's not a bad idea to save the fat, because if you do hamburger or sausage or anything like that, there's a thing. Before brisket became popular, they just used to grind up brisket, and it was some of the best hamburger meat you can get. It used to be pretty cheap, but now it's expensive. So if you ever see a restaurant that is advertising brisket hamburgers, buy that hamburger, because I mean they grind up brisket and they're making the best burgers out there. So they've got all this. It's called butter fat. They've got all this fat all over this brisket. We're going to trim off a little bit of it, but because it's not going to render down when we're cooking, and it's just going to be problematic. But if you want to keep it in a Ziploc bag, you do enough of them, and then you can go get yourself a chuck roast, grind it up, and you'll have all this beautiful butter fat to put in your sausage or your hamburger. So I'm going to take this little decal off because it's just going to cause me problems while I'm trying to cook it. Okay? So I'm going to take it off and set it right there. So now I'm going to be a little bit able to kind of take off all this little sinews and these pieces of fat and silver skin here. I'm just going to take that off. And the best way I found to do it, and I would get on YouTube. There's some pretty funny videos on there too, but the helpful ones will be where they're showing you some knife skills. So you do not want to ever be, have your hand here and carving back towards you. Okay, I like my fingers, so so you want to hold it kind of steady up here, go with the grain, and just kind of start peeling that back. The reason I like taking off the deck is because now I want to get that kind of flat. I'm going to take up a little bit more so I can get this knife flat on here, and we're good to go. You can also stick your hand a little bit underneath the brisket like this and just kind of slowly but surely take that off. Okay? So as I work my way across, I'm just kind of taking down all of this little silver skin, because what I want in the end is I want this rub to penetrate through, and sometimes this crazy skin will be problematic and you can't get that rub through it. So what we're going to do is just take this little silver skin right off. Okay? Just kind of keep working it until we're done. As I'm doing this, if anybody's got any questions, just go ahead and shout them out or raise your hand, whatever. But if you're doing it a Texas style, it's not always important because the meat side is going to be down. And I'm just going to put enough seasoning on it to get it seasoned, and then it's actually going to burn off. But if you're using, if you're doing a different type, which I'm teaching tonight, where you're going to foil it, wrap it, it's called a Texas crutch or a different kind of thing. But whenever you're foiling brisket, you want to protect that flat, which is what we're doing right now. Kind of protecting this flat. Okay, so now we've got all that off. And we're pretty much done with the top now. So now you can see how we've got all of that little silver skin off, all the fat off, and it's pretty much ready for seasoning now, okay? So now, what I'll do now is you can see this kind of discolored area here on the side. Everybody can see that. I usually kind of just trim that a little bit because I want to see, just for my own sake. I'm gonna go toss it real quick. I want to see what the marbling looks from the side view here. Okay, so I'm going to take that off just a little bit. Now I don't want to take too much off, but I want to see how fatty this is. So I'm just going to kind of shave off and see what I'm working with when I'm doing this brisket. Okay, so now kind of got that off. I can see some of the marbling from the edge. We know that this is a pretty daggone good brisket, because you can see the spider webbing of a brisket. Okay, so now see all that? You see all that marbling in this, right here in this area? This is a very good piece of meat. Okay, there's different types of beef. Okay, there's Hereford, there's Angus, there's Wagyu, there's Kobe, and there's milk cows. I accidentally got a milk cow one time, and it was not a good thing. I mean, certain temp, that thing just like pieces. I gave up the ghost, and it might have been Baracho beef that I make sometimes. It just falls apart. Does everybody know what Kobe beef is in here? Has everybody heard of it? Does everybody know where it comes from? It's basically from Japan, and for about 1,000 years, the Japanese, I think it's a Shinto religion, I'm not exactly sure what it is, I probably should start checking before I teach classes, but it's a certain religion that the Japanese had where they believed that the ancestors would kind of come back through the animals that were in their lives. So if they had a cow or a dog, so they were very kind to those animals, okay? Very kind to all the dogs, cows, any creatures that were close to them. So if they had a particular cow, they would be very, very kind. They would give him the best grains, let him drink sake, give him massage, and play him beautiful music. Okay? For 1,000 years that went on. And then, in the mid to late 1800s, the westernization of Japan began, and they decided they didn't like grandma and grandpa too much anymore. So, they did not realize what they had done, and they had just spent 1,000 years on the most superior breeding project that has ever been taken under by mankind. They made the most incredible cow, calf, whatever, that it was ever created. If you look at a piece of Wagyu beef, it is spider webbed. I mean, you can actually take a thin piece of Wagyu beef that is so marbled, and their grading system is a little different, and you can use it like olive oil in a pan because it's going to liquefy, and it's the most incredible tasting thing you're ever going to put in your mouth. So you take a Wagyu, or you take a Kobe piece of beef, and you get that, and it's basically very, very expensive. What we've done now is we've taken an Angus, which has incredible flavor, but not as much tenderness, and not as much marbling, and they've crossed it with the Kobe, and we've got a Wagyu. A Wagyu beef is a cross, so you have the flavor, the rich flavor, the robust flavor of an Angus, and that marbling of a Kobe, and we get a Wagyu. Wagyu, if you go to a restaurant, a nice restaurant, they'll have like a Wagyu flat iron steak, or they'll have a Wagyu tomahawk ribeye. If you see it, and someone else is buying, order that Wagyu. Okay? Because this is going to be one of the best pieces of beef you ever put in your mouth. Yes, sir.
Okay, so the question is are we going to go for corn-fed beef, or are we going to go for range-fed, grass-fed beef in terms of getting these mixes right? Because, as you know, there's two totally different textures of meat that comes out of grain-fed versus grass-fed, and the flavours are different as well.
Oh, yeah. Are we on the... Can we stop that camera for a while? Okay, no, I'm just kidding. Off the record, I love grain-fed. It's so good for the environment. It's great. It's healthy, beautiful. You know, I'm a trophy husband myself, so I kind of always trying to watch my figure, and I'm arm candy, so I got to be careful about what I eat. So, grain-fed beef is good. But if you want flavor, and you're at a restaurant, you're spending the money, you want finished off with corn. Believe me. If you ever eat, and I don't hunt much as far as, I love pheasant hunting, I love bird hunting. I don't hunt as much deer and antelope and elk as much as my dad does. I'll still go out with him quite a bit. But if there was a animal or a creature or a deer or an elk that was prancing around the fields and hills of South Dakota that tasted like a Kobe beef, I would be out there with my freaking 30-06 or whatever I've got in my thing, and I will be killing every one of those mother freakers every freaking day because they taste great. But there's not the same thing, so we know that you can do all this lovely stuff with the venison loin back or whatever you want to do with the venison or elk or moose. It's never going to taste like that bone-in, corn-fed, finished off Angus or Wagyu tomahawk ribeye. It's not going to happen. So if you finish it off with beef and it's a lean piece of beef, it's still going to, if you want the tenderloin, it's going to be great. Grain-fed tenderloin, it's hard to mess up. But if you want a great ribeye steak, finish off with corn. That's where you want to go. Okay, so those are the different types we've got basically select, prime, select, choice, and prime. There's all kinds of different ones for Kobe, but the main thing is we're trying to take a very difficult piece of meat and we're going to try to break it down from a lot of collagen to gelatin, okay? That is the food science thing for the day. Okay? I need you to come up here because we're going to demonstrate. You're going to be my little, who's the lady from Vanna White? He's in the Vanna White.
It's just like that.
Okay. So, has anybody ever gotten a good massage in here? I mean, like Swedish or something like that? Okay. Yeah. Get a massage. It's like, oh, this is great. Oh, it's awesome. Yeah, we're going to massage. That's what you're doing with your meat. Okay? What happens when all of a sudden poor Ben here is getting the greatest massage he's ever got in his life, and all of a sudden I go, he's going to go, holy cow, this guy just freaking hit me. Now I'm all tightened up. Thank you. That's what happens when you don't control the heat in your smoker. If you're cooking your brisket, and all of a sudden you're cranking along 250, 275, 300, or whatever it is, and all of a sudden your temperature drops down. It's dropping down. You had a couple beers. You know, Ben likes the Notebook. He's watching the Notebook at home. He's sitting there with his big half-gallon thing of ice cream, in tears, watching the Notebook. After the end of the movie, he realizes that his smoker has gone from 275 down to 200. What is he going to do? He's going to, you know, like shoveling coal like he's in the Titanic, you know, trying to get the temperature back up, okay? What that's going to do is put stress on the meat. It's going to tighten up, and you're all over the place. So we want consistent heat. We're breaking down collagen in the gelatin. We're trying to break down that meat with consistent heat. When you do that, yeah, go ahead.
If you have your temperature fall like that, is it better to raise it gradually, or?
It's almost better just to leave it at that temp and let it, and then just basically cook it at 200 for the rest of the time, so take more time, because it's going to tighten up. Okay, it's already bad news, but it's never a good idea to go down. If you want to raise it up steadily, if you're at 275 and I want to go to 280, 290, 300, that's what's called a deep tissue massage. You ever had one where you walk out, oh yeah, that guy dude, or girl, oh my gosh, I can't even move my arms. It's a deep tissue massage. I know guys that cook brisket at 400 degrees the whole time through. And it tastes great, it tastes awesome. What happens is, but it's under stress. And that brisket swells up, and that flat, you see how thin that flat is? If you cook it at 400 degrees, it's gonna puff up, it's all in stress. But it will eventually break down. So guys are cooking that to be very, very good at what they're doing. Somebody trained, usually a chef of some type, and they're used to cooking it at 375 to 400 degrees. You do not want to jump from 275 down to 200 or 180 and then back up to 275. And I'm telling you, if you're cranking it up from 200 to 275, it's like, you know, taking a semi-truck downhill. You're not going to stop that temp at 275. It's going to hit 325. Okay? So you're trying to crank coals in there, it ain't stopping at 275. So you're going to go all the way up, then you're going to try to come down, and it's all over the place. It's best just to keep your eye on the smoker and maintain heat. That's why you have these things called Guru fans. They have all kinds of different things that you can use to cook and monitor the air intake into your smoker. Guru fan, look them up. You can put them pretty much on any smoker out there. It'll control the air intake to your smoker. Okay, so if you're doing a Texas brisket, you're going to leave all the fat on the top, okay? So one of the briskets we're going to eat tonight is going to be a Texas-style brisket, okay? What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to do a Kansas City style also, so we can isolate the burn ends. So I'm going to take off the top part of this fat so you can see the difference, and actually the grain is in a completely different direction than what the flat is, okay? So I'm going to take off this fat, and I'm going to show you the difference in the marbling and the direction of the grain. So what we're going to do, we want to get this fat off just enough. We don't want to take too much off, but we want to get the fat off so we can season it up, and then it'll accept that smoke and get a good smoke ring on it, and put it on the smoker. Do we want to put the brisket on the smoker cold or room temp warm like a steak?
Cold. Room temp.
Huh?
You want to put it on cold.
You want to put it on cold? Why?
You'll get more smoke attracted to the surface.
Okay, keep going. I like where you're going with that.
Because it's colder, as it warms up, the water is going to condense out of the water inside your smoker, which is going to attract the smoke molecules to the surface of your meat, which is
The right direction, okay. Basically you have nitrates. Okay, nitrate is what causes the smoke ring. You want that beautiful red smoke ring that you're going to get. As the water comes out, it'll stay. If your brisket is colder, it'll continue to react with the nitrates. Once it reaches a certain temperature, then it's going to stop. So you want to put that brisket on cold on your smoker and make sure that you get a better smoke ring. Now you can fake smoke rings and do that, but you're going to get better smoke and a better flavor if it goes on cold. So write that down. So we want to put our briskets on cold. Now if you're doing a steak, everybody knows we try to get them to close to room temp so they're not shocked, and we hit them at about 700 to 800 degrees or even more if you can do it. Okay? So right now, we see that we have the grain of that flat. It's kind of running in this direction. It's very lean. Turn it around. We have a different piece of meat that has the grain going this way, and it's very much more marbled than this one, than the other side. Okay? So what we'll do, once we've gotten to a certain point in the cooking process, and you guys can stand up and come up if you want to get up here and look a little bit closer. Feel free to. You don't have to sit in your seats or whatever. Just feel free to get up and move around and look at the stuff. But you can kind of see from right here. See that fat line right here along the side? That's what's going to separate the point from the flat. It's two separate pieces of meat that's joined by that fat vein that comes in here. When you get to a certain temperature, your brisket, you can actually separate it. You lop off that point without the worry of you bleeding out. Now, it's not like a steak. Like if you try doing that with the steak, you're cooking your steak along here, it's grilling up great, and you cut it in half, what's going to happen? It's going to bleed out, you can lose your moisture, and then it's over. So, but that's not true of brisket, because we're going to be taking this brisket around this fat, and we can lop off that spot. Flat can go in the cooler and rest while we hit the point a little bit longer with about an hour and a half with more sauce, a little bit of rub, and back on the heat. Okay? So that's what we're doing with the brisket. Go ahead. Okay. Seasoning. I like to use this as salt, pepper, a little bit of garlic powder, and paprika. Go to your store, find a good rub online. If you're in a pickle, okay? If you're in a pickle, you can use Lowry's. I mean, there have been so many championships won with Lowry's seasoned salt. Okay, it's a great little all-around thing. But what I do is I'll take one big thing of the Sam's thing you can get of seasoned salt, one big thing of the Montreal steak, dump it in a Ziploc bag, put 2 cups of brown sugar or 2 cups of turbinado sugar in it, and you're good to go. I do some catering. I don't want to use my specialized seasoning, so to speak. I know guys that spend a lot of money and they use like all the stuff on a caterer, and they have no idea what it's going to taste like. So that's a good little way to kind of, if you want to get a rub, you're kind of in a hurry. Lowry's, Montreal, brown sugar, or turbinado sugar. Good little one to do.
Is that for a brisket or just
Anything,
general?
all around general any rub. When I do brisket, I like to put on a little bit of a paprika-based rub, a little bit of Montreal steak, and then sugar. Okay. Why would I want to ever put on sugar on a brisket?
Caramelization.
A bark, okay. That's a good answer. Hold on, let me get this turbinado sugar real quick. Okay, so we've got turbinado sugars coming. So I've got a rub here that I made up. Thank you. And what? That's good. Why would I? Any other answers? Why would I want to put sugar on my brisket?
Sweetness.
I want to make candied brisket. Okay. Everybody thinks you're crazy, right? No, I think I'm crazy. No. Has anybody ever heard of osmotic pressure? Okay. Conduit. And what happens with copper and electricity? It flows through the copper, and you get electricity that is now dynamic and moving around a particular structure or unit or any kind of anything that electricity will flow through as a conduit, like from water to copper or whatever. So you're using it as a conduit. With sugar, sugar will melt, sugar will dissolve, sugar will do things and it'll draw things with it. Okay, so what I want to do with the sugar is basically use it as a conduit. So I'm going to season this brisket up. Okay? And whoever answers the best questions tonight gets to take this brisket home and use it on their smoker. It's already going to be seasoned, so I got to decide who's going to win this thing. And I have a little tip jar up front here too, so. But now, okay, I'm putting on my rub. This is a paprika-based rub. I'm going to give everybody my email tonight, okay? You can email me and I'll email you a good recipe for a rub, a good recipe for a sauce, and some other things, okay? And if you ever have questions, you know, your mother-in-law's coming over, and you really like her.
She doesn't like me.
We're the same boat, brother. Okay? We'll talk later. I'll tell you what you can put on her brisket later. Okay? But no, you got people coming over, and you want to make sure you're doing it. And you got a quick question. What I would do, and you've forgotten some of the stuff we've talked about, just email me real quick, and I'll try to get back to you and help you out.
What's that mixture? Is that
Now
just
this is a good question. This is basically 5 parts pepper, 2 parts salt, and about 1 part garlic powder and a little bit of
So
onion.
that's the basic.
Yeah, just a quick little salt, pepper rub I like to put on brisket. Okay? So now, what's going to happen is, that turbinado sugar, I'm going to put it directly over the top of this. Because this is a large piece of meat, okay? Of brisket. So, this is where you're going to think I'm crazy again, okay? Oh, he's crazy. Does everybody know what turbinado sugar is?
Yeah.
Sugar in the raw. Basically unprocessed sugar. Oh, he's crazy. What's he doing up there again? Okay, so I'm putting all of this sugar on my brisket. Now there's a couple guys in this room that have had my brisket. Does it taste sweet? No. Does it taste like candy? No. What I'm telling you is what's going to happen is with this sugar is going to dissolve into this meat, and it's going to take if you're using Montreal steak, it's going to take the fennel, it's going to take the sugars, it's going to take the pepper, the salt, the garlic, the onion, and as it dissolves into that meat, it's going to pull it in. Okay, that's what you want. That's why I'm using this sugar.
Now, did you pat that dry first, or?
When I took off the top of basically that membrane, and it was you were taking off pretty much any kind of moisture on top. So you're basically patting it dry when you're doing that. But it doesn't have to be bone dry by any means, because it's going to sweat down.
Right.
How long do you let it sit typically?
About a minute. Because I usually when I'm cooking brisket, I do well, that's a good question. For this application, if I'm doing a Texas style brisket, I season the flat first, and then I flip it over and I season the fat. If I'm doing a regular Kansas City style, which is what I should have done here, thank you for pointing out my mistake. You're not going to win the giveaway, but that's good.
I got a tip coming on the back end. I won't close it off yet.
If I'm going to do a Kansas City, I want to season the bottom first, and then I want to turn it back over and leave the seasoning on the top alone. And then basically it's going to sit here. So I'm going to flip it back over real quick, because what happens is, and as I turn it over, you didn't see very much fall off, because it's going to stay on there, it's going to sweat down. So I'm going to season this point now with this, and you can put a ton of seasoning on the point, because it is a fatty piece of meat, Just rub it all around. You want to get it on there pretty good. It's not like the flat. I mean, this is a lot thicker piece of meat. Okay.
Oh, one thing that's unclear to me, on the Kansas City style, would you typically only remove the fat cap on the point and you leave it on the flat?
Yeah, you leave it on the flat. I never ever, when I'm cooking brisket, I know a couple guys have taken it off, but I don't ever, personally, ever take that fat off that, because I want to protect that flat.
Because it's so thin.
Yeah.
Okay, just checking that it wasn't said specifically.
Okay, so now I'm seasoning this back up. Just gonna sit back down. You can already see this thing starting to sweat on. It's already kind of getting wet. The sugars are starting to dissolve into it. It is not a bad idea, if you know you're going to be cooking it in the morning, to let it sit overnight. I inject my briskets and season my briskets probably around 6 or 7 o'clock, and I put them on at 4:30 in the morning. So if you know you're going to cook it, you want it done a certain time, you can season it and inject it the night before. If you're injecting, do you want to inject first or do you want to season first? And why?
I'm gonna guess that you would inject first.
Why?
Because you're less likely to pull any of the seasonings down into the middle that aren't supposed to be part of that, or?
Okay, it's a good answer. Anybody helping it?
I'd say the opposite, because you want to season it and then inject it, because if you inject it and then you're moving it around, all your injection's going to run out.
Good point. He's actually right, but you make a good point. If I'm pumping this thing up, and you can use any kind of injection. I mean, you can go to one of the best injections you can use is Campbell's beef consomme. Okay, it's a nice beefy flavor. If you want to go get bones and you want to go boil your own bones down, make your own consomme with carrots and celery, it'd be great. It's fine. You can go get a nice consomme or make a little instant one. You just want to get beefy flavor into this flat. I don't usually inject the point. But in the flat, you want to get a little bit more flavor if you want to. The best, I mean, there's all kinds of crazy injections out there, or even the injectors. The one I use is the best one I use. You can get it at the vet store. It's a 14 gauge needle, like a 40 cc syringe or plunger, and just use that. You can use it for 2 or 3 times, or maybe 50 cents. Because the other ones, I mean, you inject something through a needle, and you see these crazy needles. How are you going to clean the inside of that needle? Okay, you're putting so much weird stuff through it, and it's going to get clogged and problematic. The best thing to do is just get a little injector that you can get at the vet store, and get a 14 gauge needle, 40 cc plunger or syringe, and you're good to go. Cheap. Just get a 10 pack of them, and it'll last you forever. Okay, so inject, and basically when you're injecting, you want to inject about a 1-inch grid all the way around. Okay, just keep going, 1-inch grid, maybe 2 or 3 cc's per plunge, just a little pocket, a little pocket in each little thing here. Okay, then after seasoned, injected, you can leave it sit for 6-7 hours if you want, 4 or 5 hours, but you don't want to sit much more than 6 hours on that injection. Temperatures can run for brisket. There's different styles of briskets, different ways of cooking. One of the most famous briskets out there is going to be Aaron Franklin in Austin, the Mueller's brisket, Smitty's, and all those guys that are in the Hill Country, Texas area. And they're cooking at, everyone will tell you, oh, low and slow is great. Well, low and slow is not great. Low and slow is great for certain things. With brisket, you need to get some heat on it. I usually have 275 to 290. Aaron Franklin, before he got famous, I knew him, still know him. I was down there 2 weeks ago. But he does he's got his pit. He makes it himself. It's not fancy. It's a big freaking propane tank with a big burn box, and he's got a little ruler that he's had for forever. And he's got this thing on his door, and it's like he knows that 1 inch is 290 degrees. He knows that 1/2 inch is 275. He starts it at 290 and lowers it a little bit down to 275 and leaves it there. So that's what we're talking about for if temperature falls, it's not a bad idea just to leave it there. He starts a little bit hotter and then comes back down, especially when he wraps it. and I'll show you that a little bit in a couple minutes here. So we've got a Texas style brisket, we've got Kansas style brisket. We're cooking 275 to 290. We're letting this sweat down. We're seasoning it, then we're injecting it, and then it's on the smoker. The temperature you're looking for, the key temperature, what would be your internal temperature that you would think we would want to take this to? Give me some guesses.
Probably 185.
190, 185.
I'd say like
175.
175. This is for the brisket, okay?
I would say like 160.
160.
Lower.
None of you people in the back row get an answer. But keep going. Okay, so what do we have so far?
You've got
190,
185,
160,
165.
Okay. You got what did you get? 190?
Yeah, 190, 180.
Anybody else want to make a guess? We're on the prices right here, people.
205.
205.
201.
Who's what? Okay.
$1.
201 to 202. The man with the beard wins because he already knew the answer. Okay. Sounds crazy. What is the temperature you take a roast to? 160? 160. Why would you take a piece of meat to 201 to 202?
To break down more of the fat.
Huh?
To break down that fat.
To break down the collagen. Yes, you're breaking down that collagen. So 185, this sucker's still jerky. I mean, I'm telling you, you cut that thing up at 185, you're pulling that thing through your teeth. 195 is okay, but it's still pretty, it ain't that great. 201, 202, 203, competition briskets that are Wagyu, you take them 204, 205, okay? But for you guys at home, 200, 201, 202 is a good temp. Now, a little secret of the day, just for friends and family. If you're traveling, okay, and you're cooking 2 briskets, and you're driving across from Missoula, Montana to over Rapid City or Billings, whatever, and it's a 5 or 6 hour drive somewhere, you're going for 5 or 6 to 7, maybe 8 hours at the max. And you go into your family's house, and you know all they freaking eat is McDonald's or whatever, and you're tired of it. So you want to cook a couple briskets for this big thing. Take it to 185 to 190, okay? And it has to be at least 2 briskets. It cannot just be 1. 2 or 3 is ideal. Cook 2 briskets, maybe 3. Keep them in a butcher paper or just like this. Take them to 185 to 188, something like that. Stick them in a cooler. Duct tape that sucker closed, okay? You got some kid in your car, or your wife, or your husband. Somebody's gonna do it. Looking for a pop, and they're gonna open that crazy cooler, and you're gonna lose your mind because you just lost all your heat. Duct tape that thing closed, okay? Duck it. 2 or 3 briskets for 5 or 6 to 7 to 8 hours. Will be hit 201 by about 2 hours, 203, and then it's gonna start coming down. And when you get there, it's gonna be the best brisket you ever had. The more time you allow brisket to rest, the better it will be, okay? It's gonna be insane. People are gonna think you're a freaking genius when you show up with 2 briskets in a cooler, or we're all going to McDonald's, you say, hey, make a quick salad, get some bread. I got the best briskets ever made by a man, okay? You got it. Boom, done. Mic drop, okay? That's the way it goes. So, yeah.
How much ice is in that cooler?
Okay. I've been known as the barbecue Nazi a couple times. He's banned for 1 year. Go ahead.
When you're checking the temperature, are you checking it off the point or the flat?
That's a good question. If we were going by questions, you'd win the brisket, but he got the 205. So you're going to take your thermopan, wherever it's at, and you're going to right about where the point meets the flat, right around here. It's going to come in at an angle, and you're going to take it about 1 inch in. So just come in at an angle from the thin side, and it's right in there.
Okay.
Go about 1 inch deep, 1.5 inches, and it's going to tell you your temp. Anything else on the brisket?
Okay, one other question.
Sure.
If you were just taking it directly off the grill and you're not transporting it anywhere, if you're resting it, as you say, it's better to let it rest. Would you foil wrap it, or is that going to contribute?
Good question. I forgot to bring that. Man, he's just correcting me left and right. He's got to get something today. Okay, at about, it's called a Texas crutch. You can paper it. I'm thinking 7, 8 to 9 hours. You got it on the smoke. Could be 5 or 6, but you want to wrap that brisket in something. Paper. If you're wrapping it in butcher paper, you're not putting any kind of wrap, any kind of liquid in it. I usually don't even put a wrap or anything in if I'm cooking it at home. For competition reasons, I do put a wrap in it because I want this kind of a beer breakdown and a certain flavor profile that I'm looking for. But for home use, you might put like a half of a beer in there with maybe you mix a beer with some barbecue sauce, a little seasoning that you like, a little bit of just a smidge of vinegar. Not much, just something that's going to be, beer is going to do great things for brisket. So some butter, melted butter mixed in, then just kind of whisk it all up and then pour it on it. Wrap it up tight.
What kind of beer?
I usually like to use darker beers, just something dark, nothing like crazy, hoppy, crazy, but just like a stout's not bad. The stout's got a nice, smooth flavor. Nothing hoppy, nothing that's going to overpower it, but I've used John Bull Stout, I've used, all the different kinds of stouts out there. Just something that's a Guinness, something like that that's going to be very nice and smooth.
And the paper will be okay with that exposed heat.
The paper, I'm gonna pull this when we're gonna eat here in about 2 minutes, and then I'm gonna let you guys eat while I teach of pork and the ribs and a little bit more while you're eating. So we're gonna take a little break and munch on some stuff. But the brisket in that paper is gonna take a little bit longer because you're not foiling it. But it'll be so much easier for you to foil it and just wrap it all up. But paper is gonna take a little bit more of a learning curve. But it's going to taste great. So if you start to get better at it, get on Amazon, order yourself some peach paper, and you'll see it here in a second.
Is there a temp you wrap at or a time you wrap at?
No. I look for a mahogany color. I mean, I look if it's a Texas brisket, I'm looking for the fat to turn almost all black. I wanted to get the peppers in it. The black pepper is going to start rendering out the fat, and you're going to get a black color. So I just go for color. I mean, if I start seeing a lot of moisture pooling up on the top of the brisket, if I'm got this brisket here and it's got moisture kind of pooling up right here, I'll probably start to wrap it.
And you'll leave that on for the rest?
Yeah, and then you'll just put your thing right through the foil and boom,
Okay.
You're done.
What kind of woods do you like to use with the brisket?
It's a good question. Around here, you can get a lot of apples and fruit woods. You can usually order hickory or something like that. My grandpa always said oak was like a 10-year-old Scotch and pecan was like a 30-year-old Scotch. It's a lot smoother. Both are good. Both get the job done. But I mean, I like pecan. I smoke with pecan and I use peach wood for color. Apple and cherry are great as well. But around here, you're going to use lump charcoal. I would use lump charcoal, not briquettes. Use lump charcoal and then add maybe 1 piece of wood every hour. So because your hardwood is going to be like gold around here. Because you don't have, in Texas, I can order 2 cords of pecan, have it to my house in an hour and a half, and it costs me $250. Up here, a bag of pecan that's got about 30 sticks in it is $35. It's not bad, but you want to cherish those pieces and don't just hey, we're having a bonfire, let's all use them on my pecan. And then, yeah, that's grounds for divorce in Texas, I'm telling you. So just be careful with your pecan. Any other questions, anything about brisket? If you guys think of something else too, feel free to ask while we're eating or while we're going over pork.
I mean, I don't know much farther you're going to go with the brisket, but 8-ish hours?
I never go with time, but
yeah.
You're always going for temp. If it's a warm day, there's very low humidity, no wind, could be 6. If it's freaking cold outside and it's a wet cold and it's blowing, could be 8 or 9.
And that's at the 275 or
275. When I'm cooking brisket, I'm 275 to 290. I might start it off even at 300 and back it down.
Yeah.
You can back it down on brisket, but never ramp it up. Okay.
Do you have like a minimum rest time that you would ever do?
An hour at least.
Competition, hour at least?
Hour at least. Yes, sir.
So for competition, when you're done wrapping, or when you've wrapped and come to town,
How long do you usually let it rest?
At competition, I am usually have my briskets off around 10 o'clock, and then I put it in my Cambro, and I don't touch that sucker until about 10 after 1. Now, my competition, you have to close your ears, Mr. Heath, but I'm just joking. But I'll burp my Cambro every 30 minutes or so. Just I don't want heat building up, because the Cambro or your cooler is going to build up heat, and I want to stop the heat. Sometimes I'll even vent it, but I really don't. You don't need to, but I don't want heat building up and continuing. But I just want it to stay and start to drop slow. So burp a cooler, burp a Cambro every 20. Yeah.
Moisture, adding moisture while it's, I mean, like, I would think that in a Cambro that if you put something hot in there, it would still be steaming and that the moisture is going to be.
It's wrapped up in foil. You're keeping that moisture
So you
staying
wrap
inside.
the whole
Yeah,
time.
I'm keeping it wrapped. I'm not unwrapping it. Más preguntas?
I've never done competition, but just curiosity, do you ever mix your brisket meat in the package that you're delivering? Like have multiple different briskets from in the same box that you're delivering for competition?
So if I've cooked 2 briskets, and so I've cooked 2 different types of briskets. Is that what you're saying?
Well, no, I would imagine that you probably cook for competition, you probably cook more than one brisket.
I'd have to be an incredible chef just to cook one. Okay, I cook 1. I'm just joking, but I used to cook 2, and I would cook a prime Angus, and I would cook a Wagyu, and typically I would take the burn ends off of the Angus because they have incredible flavor, and I would take the flat off of the Wagyu because it was so marbled and so tender. So, good question. I do cook with only 1 now. Because my wife is limited me. Huh? What?
You do one now. Is it the prime or the Wagyu?
Wagyu.
So when you're putting your box together, and because I've seen the boxes getting presented, when you go to, how much do you trim when you go to serve it? Like, do you take any of the, like, does the fat render down enough for you
Did
that
this
you
say
serve it with the
competition class, or was it a beginner's?
He doesn't even have a smoker yet. You don't need to be worried.
Are you like one of those plants where like somebody like puts you in here for the class and paid you to come in?
I'm looking to be a trophy husband too.
Okay. In a competition, okay, if you want to come up here and look at this, when I'm turning in brisket, and a lot of cooks will do it, they'll actually trim off a part of this here because they know that box is 7 to 8 inches, okay? So they'll actually have a narrow piece right here that they know that their slices are not going to come from the top because you only can have slices big. So they know their slice is going to start here and it's probably going to end here. So they're going to be so careful with that little spot right there. And I'm going to kind of put a little thing. You can kind of see the lines right there. I just put with my finger. That's where your turn-in slices come from. So they might lop this piece off. They might do some fun stuff to it, which I'm not going to mention to make it look even cooler. But they do things, sometimes unholy things, to this brisket to win. Okay? That's my last thing I'll say about that. And, yes.
Last thing on competition. I read a few different things, but in terms of what you cook for yourself, is what you cook for yourself at home?
Is Parrot Head bring you in here that he's not why he?
Not at all.
Okay, go ahead.
What you cook at home versus what you cook for competition, how big of a deviation?
I like what I cook at home. What I'm serving you tonight is what I cook at home.
Okay.
Okay? I love Texas style brisket. I think it's the best flavor. I mean, judges are fickle. So you have to be careful. You have to be safe because you want something that everyone is going to like. There's going to be a 16-year-old girl that's a wacko at that table that's having a fight with her boyfriend before she walked in. That's going to be judging. And there's going to be an old guy that doesn't like tough meat or spicy foods at all or a lot of smoke. That's an alcoholic that, he's just want to take that barbecue home with his beer that night. And he's mad at everybody. So there's those kinds of judges too. All right, there's all kinds of judges. So you want to be safe. You're trying to get this buttery pot roast brisket to that table that just melts in your mouth that everyone's going to love. From a spectrum of people from all races, religions, and cultures, on that table. So you gotta be very careful. Texas brisket, I think it's gonna be great. Hopefully everybody will like it here. But it's a little bit more smoky, it's got a little bit of pepper in it, and it's very, very tender. So,
It's very delicious.
thank you.
Yours is very good.
We're crossing our fingers.
Any questions? Any more questions? And you guys think of more questions. I'm gonna tell those girls to bring in that brisket and we'll get stuff going on here. And I'll wrap you up this brisket here for you to take. You guys need to use restroom, go out there, we're gonna take a couple minute break and then we'll be back over and serve it. We'll wrap it up later. Just stick it back in the stove and cover it up. Yep, I can just wash that knife, that would be great. I'm gonna need another one just like this, and we need a crown back for the front.
Yeah, me too.
Can I ask you one other thing about just barbecuing in general? It sounds like you're a pretty big fan of the PID controllers or
Do what now?
control the PID. Well, you said the smoke guru.
Yeah,
That's what they are. You're a pretty big fan of using those.
Yeah, I do. I've got one pit that uses it. I've competed without them, with them. They're good.
I did a whole pig about 18 months ago for my sister's graduation. I thought about getting one just for that, but I ended up not. It was a lot of fun though.
All things being equal.
Yes.
Is there a microphone?
Yeah.
But, you know, I can.
Just a bunch of stuff.
Sorry about that.
Oh, no, that's okay. I've got you just fine on my onboard mic. Thank you very much.
Okay, we're gonna serve this in a couple minutes here, but you can see this is that peach paper that Texas barbecue is kind of famous for. Okay? So we're going to move this down. Yeah, we're gonna serve right now. And I'm gonna temp this just to see what the temp is. When I put it in the camera, it was right at 199 to 200 degrees. So right now, it has dropped to, and that was about, what, three and a half, 4 hours ago? So it is at 177. So it's coming down nice and slow. Should be about perfect to slice, okay? So we've taken that out. We're gonna get ready to serve our pork. Everyone in this room, every household should have a good slicer, okay? Keep it sharp. Spend some money on a slicer. It can be a tip, it can be a pointed slicer, it can be a brisket slicer, it can be whatever. This is a gratin blade. It's very sharp and it's a forged knife. I like it because it's a little bit longer, not because I'm overcompensating for anything, but it's good for brisket, okay? It's long, it's got a gratin, you see these little notches here, okay? It's got a gratin blade. Kind of looks like a samurai sword, but it allows there to be air pockets while you're slicing so you don't stick. Some slicers do not have these on them. And if you got a really hot piece of meat, it'll stick and it'll pull and you'll break your meat or you'll end up like saw cutting. You want long, nice strokes. You don't want to be carved, you know, we're not sawing a tree in half, okay? So gratin blade slicer is what we're looking for.
How do you keep it sharp?
I've got a special sharpener myself. This was a good conversation at dinner a couple nights ago. German knives are at a 22-degree angle, most German style. Okay, Japanese shuns or Japanese knives are usually at a 15 or 16-degree angle. Okay, Wüsthof, which is a very, very good German knife. There's Henkel, but Wüsthof is the gold standard. They're icons. Great knife. I've got probably 2/3 Wüsthof, 2/3 Shun, or 1/3 Shun, and I got my specialty Sabate, French carbon steel, which I like too. So there's some mix and matches there, but most of them are Wusthof. This is a Wusthof. There's a couple other Wustofs in here, but I took my 22-degree Wustofs and I planed them down to a 15, and I actually planed my Schuns down to a 15 because I have this great sharpener that will do everything at 15. And Wusthof is now taking all their new stuff to 15 degrees because it keeps a better edge, keeps it longer, and it slices like a beautiful thing. So almost all the new Wusthof stuff coming out is going to be at 15 degrees. So I just went ahead and took my Schun down to 15 and took my Wustofs, all of them, down to 15. So that's up to you, but that's just a little side note. They're bringing out coleslaw and rolls and stuff here in a second, so I'm going to do a pork butt really quick while they're doing it, and then we're going to slice this brisket. They're almost ready, so we're just going to keep charging on here. Okay, a pork butt. Why do they call it a pork butt?
Because of the barrels that they kept in.
Because what?
Wasn't the name of the barrel, like the wooden barrels that they kept them in a really long time ago?
Crates, getting close. That's the good answer though. There's a crate. Is it a part of the butt of the pig? It's actually a part of the shoulder, isn't it? Okay. They call it a pork because the crates they kept them in were able to butt them up against each other. So they were able to, you have two pork shoulders in here. The whole pork shoulder is going to include the picnic, okay? But this part here, you see this area with the striations right here? It's called a mock tenderloin, okay? Also known on the competition web circles as a money muscle. But if you're looking at a pig, okay, and how it forms up, this fat part is going to be where the hide's at, okay? And it's going to, this little mock tenderloin right here, it's going to be right up against the spine. The head's over here, the back part's over here. It's going to tuck right into that spine like a loin. That's why they call it a mock tenderloin. Okay? We're going to use the desk today. Okay, so there are different sections of this pork, okay? The most tender, the most juicy, the best part of this pork is going to be this mock tenderloin. You can kind of see it from the side here, this little circular area here. If you isolate it, if you're just going to cook for a bunch of people and you just want to pull pork, you're going to stick it in there, season it just like this. You're going to stick it in your smoker, get it to about 192 to 195, and it's going to be perfect. Let it rest for an hour and a half, and you're done. Class dismissed on the pork, okay? Seriously, pork butts, pork shoulder is one of the most forgiving pieces of meat you'll cook and barbecue, okay? Ribs are a little bit tricky, chicken can be tricky, brisket's are tricky. Pork butt is your best friend. It's like your dog. It's your best friend, okay? Man's best friend is the pork shoulder. You can season it up. People want to slather mustard on it. They want to put peanut oil on it for as a binder. Put your seasoning on it. If you want to just season it straight on it and just let it sweat down, it's fine. You want to use the rub that's got a little bit of sugars and brown sugars in it. I cook it in a pan because it's going to have a lot of fat rendering out of it, and I don't want to get my smoker messy. So I leave it right in a pan, put about a half an inch of apple juice in it. When I get a beautiful color, I cover it up. When it's done, it's done. 195 to 198, you're pulling it, it's great. End of story, okay? But since you're all good friends, I'm going to give you a little bit extra lesson here. So what we're going to do, if we want to isolate this mock tenderloin, I'm going to kind of start shaving back this area here, okay? And the thing about pork shoulders is they're used for lots of different things. Anybody know what a country rib is? Everybody like country rib?
Steak cut sideways.
Yep. So country rib, it's not a rib. It is a butcher who has taken a saw and they basically parted this pork shoulder into little steaks, little ribs, okay? And you'll notice that the shank is here in some parts. So some of those country ribs hardly have any bone in them. Some have a big old piece of bone because the shank, or the shoulder shank here, does not have that much bone in it. So you're getting some of the shoulder in it, some of the bone, some of it not. That's the secret of that rib, country rib. We can just lose that, put it right there. So we'll stick it. So I've now kind of trimmed away some of the fat here, and I just want to isolate it. So if you're cooking for a couple friends, they're coming over, you want to impress them, you can show them the mock tenderloin and medallion it out and give them how incredibly flavorful and tasty that is. But it's just this little cylinder on the front, just like that. Okay? Now, there's also on here, if you're looking from the side view, everybody like beef tri-tip? Everybody like tri-tip? Anybody ever had a pork tri-tip? No? Because they're not very well known. Okay, so I take this, and you can see this piece of meat here. See how thick that is? You grilled those crazy country ribs up. So why not do a pork tri-tip? So say you got a bunch of pork butts, and you don't want to do crazy pulled pork, so we're going to do something different. So I'm going to take this stuff out of the way. I'm going to take this just about maybe 3/8 of an inch, just a little bit of time. I'm just going to take a little bit of this off so I can expose this really pretty piece of meat below it, okay? And you can see in a second how well marbled it is just by itself. All I'm doing is I'm working against this one little membrane. This is the natural form and shape of this piece of meat. It is not, I'm not carving it to make it look like a tri-tip or V. I'm actually just following its own natural membranes and its own little pieces, like I did with this, like I'll do with this horn in a second. See how the sides started to become more pronounced? It comes down here. Control a little bit of this off here on the top. You have a natural little tri-tip sticking right underneath this pork shoulder, hidden like a little treasure that nobody ever knew about. You can cut that out, grill this, grill that. People think, where the heck did you find this? They'll think you're a freaking genius because you just found a pork tri-tip that nobody ever knew about. You can tell your butcher about it, I bet you he doesn't know about it either. It'll be one of those things that just kind of like, wow, he'll be very impressed. So, a pork tri-tip. So there's also this little area, this little dimple here. Everybody see that spot? It's like this little cylinder, it's called a horn. You can isolate that. If you want to roast it all together, it's a nice lean piece, but a very flavorful right on the bone. Okay? So it has great flavor. I'm just going to take the little membrane off so I can get smoke and I can get some seasoning to it. And you've got your own little medallionable or nice lean piece. It's on the side here, okay? You kind of see the natural shape of a little horn because it tapers down from here all the way to a point. Okay? Everybody see that? Like this little horn, circular round spot right there. We just isolated it out. Okay? I'm telling you, the pork butt's so nice, it's so resilient, it's easy. You can cook it just like that. You can grill all this off, use it as for soup or whatever, put it in a pot with some hatch green chilies and some seasoning, Mexican oregano, comino, chili powder, hash, and make a great green chili with your pork scraps. And now you've got 3 isolated pieces of meat that you can grill, smoke as one, and utilize however you like. Okay? When you season it with the rub all the way around. in a pan with apple juice. You can if you want to use an injection, 2 parts apple juice, 1 part vinegar, maybe half a cup of salt. That's the easiest one I know. It's been used for a long time. If you want to go crazy, you can go with peach nectar, apricot nectar. You can start doing some other stuff. Add some rubs to it. But that's a apple cider or a white wine vinegar, probably good. Champagne vinegar is not bad either. Okay, that's it. Pork butt is so nice. It's so easy.
Temperature for cooking?
195 to 198.
For internal.
Internal. If you're gonna slice the money muscle, probably go 192, 190. And then take it out. This can go to 195.
But your grill, you keep 275.
Oh, 275, yeah.
Same as everything.
250 wouldn't hurt bad either. If you have a pellet smoker, come and talk to me later and I can give you some information on that. Okay, so we have coleslaw, we have pulled pork, we've got buns, and I will be slicing this right now. If anybody needs, do we have drinks?
We have a machine, we've got one,
Okay.
whatever anybody needs.
Coke machine over here. Everybody want to take a break, use the restroom, start grabbing plates, grab a drink, and come through the line. And I will be getting this brisket ready shortly. Can you send Katie in here and I'll take this away? If anybody wants to come and take a look at this pork butt, how it's kind of sectioned out, go for it.
And that's how you would do it if you're to clean up your muscles for the competition?
Yeah.
So do you do that same weight carrying with other slices of meat as well, like a roast or a tenderloin, like a...
Oh, rib, like a pork. If it's beef, yeah. I take a tenderloin, I take a prime rib. I'll do the same exact thing.
For the flavor, should you do that?
Like I said, I buy prime ribs for Christmas, like way early.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And I'll take them in, and yeah, prime rib. That's a great thing to have. Okay, slicing brisket, you want to go against the grain. Okay, so what we're gonna do is, like, it's got this little point here. So everybody gotta get a look at it. You may want to take a picture of it. Take a picture of it first before I slice it. That's not a problem. Good? No photo ops? Okay, we're just going to slice it. Everybody's hungry. Okay. Okay, so we're going to take it over here. And you can see how tender that is. That was at 200 degrees, believe it. It's like my pastor always said, I'm not preaching now, I'm telling the truth. Okay? Sauce was in there. There it is.
Oh, there.
Yeah, sauce.
Is this your sauce?
The sauce with the students made up.
Okay.
But it's a good sauce.
Snuck into
Brisket. I cook. There's a pig on the smoker in the back. We're gonna take a little field trip and go look at it in a little bit. But I have a whole hog smoking right now that I'll show you guys here in a minute. But I tried to cook whole hog right around 275. You don't want it to spoil on you.
How big is this hog?
170.
Thank you.
Do you know
Sure. Question?
Oh, yeah.
When you do whole hog steak, you do the head on as well?
Oh, I don't ever go pig or hog without the head. It has to be pristine. I mean, it has to have, when I'm talking like, it has to be gorgeous. I don't want any nicks in the hide. I don't want ears that have been chewed up.
Do you do it with the hoofs on as well?
I take the hoofs off.
Okay.
There's no person out there that wants to see a hoof of a pig. Okay, I even do a bacon blindfold if the lady's a little squeamish. But
At that size, it's really hard to. When I did it, it was supposed to have the hoofs on.
He was looking for.
I gotta say,
take the
without,
hoofs off
He was looking for.
okay.
I got socks.
Maneuvering it out without them is gonna be fairly difficult.
I have a rack. You don't ever do a pig without your own rack. You have to-
Oh, well, no, I made a rack and everything, but like before that, I brined it and getting it, I did it in the tub, in a bag, and then iced it.
You
And
grind it? How big was that pig?
130. It was very, very difficult. I can't see how I would have maneuvered it without the hoofs on there. Where are you going?
Yeah, I inject my hogs, but I don't ever brine them. That's a lot of.
It was very
lot of
labor
freaking
intensive.
work.
I wouldn't have done it again, but it was definitely very apparent.
So is the brisket, you able to keep it down back there? How are we liking that? Is it a little different than you guys are used to? Is it something you guys eat every day?
I'm really interested to see.
Wish ate like that every day.
I'll probably start
Are you able to keep it down over there?
Oh no, it's horrible. I need to try another piece and see.
Yeah.
I think I got a bad piece.
Yeah. You can't make me eat any more of this.
So is it not your typical brisket that you've had that's a little bit more different than, so you're liking it, or what is your critique?
So this is Texas
good.
style.
This is a Texas style.
Because it's smokier.
Smokier and a little more pepperier.
Yeah. Is it, you just hit it longer with smoke than
Longer with smoke,
casing?
a little bit longer. Yep.
I think the only thing that I don't like about it, and I get why it's like that, is this doesn't have any crust on it because of the wrap.
No, it's got crust right here. This is the crust.
Okay.
It's got, you're not, I mean, it's thin, you have to realize, you have a thin slice that's gonna be on the top.
Yeah.
But you're keeping that bark. And that's about as crusty, that's your crust. You're keeping that crust on because of the paper that's allowing it to bleed.
Well,
See, I'd like to see
it is incredibly
expand
moist.
well. Steak, lamb chops or something like that.
And what did you spend this with?
Sausage.
This is pecan and oak,
Okay.
and there's basically a hardwood lump.
So how do you, like, start your fire?
With a chimney, a little bit of lump, newspaper. I don't ever use lighter fluid.
And it gets hot and you let it come down.
I dump a load of chimney full-fledged in there, put a couple pieces of wood on it, walk away, might put a little bit more in there. That's about it.
And when it comes down to, let's say, 290, that's when you'll start doing your stuff?
I have some more, please.
Wow, this is a little out of the power.
What rub did you use on the pork?
This is a homemade rub, like a paprika base.
It's fairly sweet.
Yeah. A lot of brown sugar, terminata. Good?
Yeah, it's awesome. Sorry, I don't think you're
What do you guys think?
It's awesome.
Very good.
It's all right.
On the plate.
Yeah, right.
Then, one rack of ribs over in the back, so we got fresh. Okay, so now you've seen the pork and the brisket. I've trimmed it. Any questions so far before we go on to ribs here? We're wrapping up here probably in about 20 minutes. And while we're waiting too, you're more than welcome to ask about steaks, prime rib. You know, we just did a goat outside.
Yeah, how
We're doing
was that?
we're doing a whole hog.
It's not bad, but I'm not really big on pork.
You know, just any questions?
What kind of smoker?
How is the goat? What do you typically season that with?
Goat?
Oh, you said you were doing it that Mexican style with the.
No, I'm not doing that. It's just that's just a particular way. Right over there, but that can go back over.
Chef Campbell's desk.
Yeah, you can take that. Sure, you love that.
We won't tell them. Actually, we will.
Let's do another one.
Yep.
Is there anybody else?
You were talking about the pork shoulder and the picnic cut?
And the juice you've got the whole pork in, what is that?
That's the only juice that it's cooked down. When I have the apple juice in it, I just pull it in the apple juice and the sauce. It's cooked down in the pork. It's cooked down in the. It's the stock. It's the fat. It's everything that's in that. It's in that piece. You want to make you a plate? Go for a plate, somebody. Where's I'll slice in 2 seconds. There's another 6 tongs right there. Go ahead. If there's a loose piece, go ahead and grab it on that. You like coleslaw? Okay. Any questions on steak? Any questions on any other grilling things that you could possibly think? I don't know if I've missed anybody yet, but please feel free to.
What general recommendations do you have for steak?
Just depends on what you like. I mean,
For a ribeye?
for ribeye, I'd go bone in, definitely. Tomahawks for looks, just bone in, but the Wagyu is incredible. If you get a good prime, it's also good.
We have a local Montana Wagyu cattle company. They're out of Belgrade, and all he does is raise Wagyu in the Gallatin Valley. So there's a guy, basically locally, that does it. He's nice because he'll like FedEx overnight whole primals and stuff, and the price is pretty good.
Cool.
What temperature do you like to pull your prime rib off at?
Good question. When you're doing a whole prime rib, if it's the whole thing, you want to be careful about the ends. They're gonna, because you just want to know who your crowd's going to be. If you've got everyone in that group likes medium rare, you're going to cut that sucker in half and you're going to cook it separately. But if you've got some groups that likes medium or well, if anybody likes a well done prime rib, they can go someplace else, or I'll stick it in the microwave for about 20 seconds and they can have it that way. But if I'm talking medium, hair on medium well, but just medium to medium rare to rare, kind of like that, they're always going to go from medium rare to medium. So if I've got a whole group that's a little bit of a gambit, then I'll keep that whole thing together and I'll cook it to about, till that center piece is about 137 to 138, basically. I mean, the temperature gauge is on from medium rare is it 130? Is it 131?
125, 130.
So you're gonna pull it if you're gonna have a lot of people wanting medium rare. You're gonna pull it at about 128 to 127. It's gonna creep up to 131.
And a huge piece of meat like that, it'll rest, it'll be fine. Like 130 is a safe. You're not gonna have a huge raw part in the middle. 125, 130.
Yeah.
What temperature do you work at?
I hit it hard with heat. I mean, I might get 325 when I'm doing prime rib because I want that crust and I do some things with it too. Some unholy things with my prime rib. Yes, ma'am.
So it's nothing to do with prime rib, but what about smoking salmon? Do you do like a whole salmon in parchment paper?
I just did one on my Facebook page. We had sake salmon was in season. I think coho's in right now. The sake was in, and we had two. I flayed it all out. There was just two whole salmon. Flayed it all out. Showed each step. But you want a cold smoked salmon. You don't want to do a high heat. You don't want to. You're not cooking that salmon. You want to cure it, smoke it. Let it. If you want to put it in a little bit of a saltwater solution, there's different things. Tarragon is great. A little bit of things that you can put with that as you're curing it. But your salmon's about 160 to maybe 155 to 160. What I like to do is take one of these pans, the disposable pans, I like to freeze it, the ice in it, you put some parchment paper down, and then I put the salmon on top of it. It's gonna stay nice and cool. Stick it in the smoker if you're having trouble keeping the heat down. So if you're keeping your heat at 180-ish in there, you don't want to go much higher. But it's on an ice slab. It's going to keep that ambient temperature of that salmon. It's going to bring in the smoke. Do a little. You want to pull out the pen bones. There's about 13 or 14 with a little. Just have yourself a little needle nose pliers. It pulls right out. Takes 5 minutes to get 2 whole salmon done. I mean, you just count them out.
How long would you keep it for?
You're gonna cure it for a few hours. I mean, some people do it overnight, but if it's a fresh salmon, I'm talking if it's in season, huh? Costco, you're gonna go longer because they've either flash froze it and they've thawed it. But if it's at a good seafood or meat market and they've flown it in, it was swimming 48 hours ago, it's gonna be pretty good. You don't wanna cure it. Just a little bit of salt solution, water, some other things, maybe some sugar to get it. It'll slime off a little bit of things on it, but then take it out, wash it off, and then put your seasoning on it. Anything with like I said, tarragon's a great thing for fish. There's other seasonings that you can use, but just a good smoke, something clean, alder, apple, nothing really bitter or harsh, because that salmon is even more than poultry. Poultry will pull in a lot of smoke, that salmon's gonna yank it in. So light smoke. Take it to not very high, 130. You're not taking it very high, and then wrap it back up. I like doing a honey smoked salmon because you can actually evaporate honey with water, mix whisk in water, 1 part honey, 1 part water, whisk it in, and it'll actually, when it starts to boil, that honey will adhere to the salmon. It's called a honey smoked salmon. So you're boiling that water and keeping the moisture in on the very bottom. Got to be very careful with it, but if it's right next to the flame, you'll get it evaporated and it'll actually adhere to the salmon. You can brush it on too with a little bit of honey, but that doesn't work that great. So you want to honey smoke it, which that's a different way. But there's different ways of doing salmon. Trout, lake trout, same thing. Ice fishing, always a good idea. Any other questions? Is it okay? Yeah. Is it good? All right.
That's awesome. Chicken lot was better.
Horrible stuff.
Okay, so we need to start doing the ribs. Now ribs are a little different. Okay, there's different kinds of ribs. There are certain things we do to ribs, certain things we don't do to ribs. Okay? What we don't do to ribs, and a sacrilege, is boil ribs. It's just like a death penalty in some states, I think. We do not boil ribs. People who boil ribs, we can't talk about that yet. Maybe a little later. But if you know what you're doing, and we're doing ribs, you should really know what type of ribs you're using. Because you have a loin back or baby back rib, and then you've got a spare rib. Okay? I personally like bacon. Who in here likes bacon? Does everybody like bacon? We have any people just say, oh, that bacon is terrible. It's terrible. No, bacon is a good thing. Bacon tastes good. I like bacon, okay? So, spare rib is right below pork belly. Okay, and if you're butchered when they're doing they're butchering the animal, they are taking that pork belly off the top here, and you're leaving you with the spare rib. Now, some ribs are better than others because they're thicker. They leave a little bit more of that pork belly on. So you want to watch for the thickness. You want to watch for the weight. You want to watch for marbling. You want to see lots of white on top of the rib, not just meat. You want to look for marbling. Okay? You also are looking for something on the back. I'll walk this around. You want to make sure that the ribs that you're getting came from a pig that died of a coronary. He had quadruple bypass and he didn't make it, okay? You're looking for fat ribs. Okay, what we're looking at, everybody can see about marbling on the front. Yeah, you got striations, it's beautiful, it's great. But what really matters is what this looks like back here. Nobody ever tells you this, and you probably never even heard of it. But along the bones, when you're looking at the back of a rib, these are okay. Let me hold on one second. I'm going to ask you my measure. Because I have a rack that I'm using for a couple. Can you get those really fatty suckers? So I can show them. Thanks, man. You're looking for pockets of fat. See, along these ones are okay, but you can look as you're looking through these. It's kind of an effervescent looking membrane here. You can actually see the bone. Okay? I don't want that. I want something that has pockets of fat there. So you can see the striations, that's great. It's a pretty good looking rib, it's not bad. But I want to be able to see these crazy pockets. I'm going to let you pass these around. Go ahead and look at that. You can see how you can see the effervescent, you can see the membrane and all that. Okay, this Wilbur, see all that white? There, when you pull that membrane off, we'll show you in a second. We're going to yank this membrane off, and you're going to see pockets of fat all in here, okay? This is going to be pockets of fat, and that's what you're looking for. You're looking for this to be white, not effervescent where you see each bone and a little bit of solution there. You want pockets of fat everywhere. So that means what? Fat is flavored. Okay, we all know that. Fat is flavored. So when we're in the supermarket, do we buy 2 packs or 3 packs of ribs?
No, spare ribs.
No. Because they're going to put the best rib on top, you're not going to be able to look under it, and they're going to put some crappy ribs in the middle for sure, and maybe an okay rib on the bottom. So if you can ever get it, try to get your single packs. Okay, it's worth bang for the buck. Okay, so you get your single packs of ribs. Look for high fat content. And you're also looking for a red, the more reddish color, the better. Does anybody know why?
The red of the meat?
The red of the meat. Do you want a pink rib, or do you want a red rib?
Red, more moisture, more fat in it?
No, kind of.
Had to do with oxygen content.
Depends on what feed you've been putting into them.
It's a pH. It's a higher pH. Good. It's the higher pH, which is higher, better flavor, the more red the meat. Like if you've got a Duroc hog, they're known for the red meat, the reddish pork. They're known for having a higher pH. So if you're looking at 2 racks of ribs side by side, okay? I think I was like number 9 in the country out of 8,000 teams in ribs last year. If you're cooking your ribs, and I always look for that fat part of the back, I'm also looking for reddish colored ribs. Okay, so you're looking for that pockets of fat, that white across the back, good marbling, and a little bit slighter reddish color. Okay?
So your colour of your meat's also determined by what feed you put into the picture as well.
Somewhat, yeah.
I used to feed a lot of pigs, and you put barley and you got white meat. So you put them into, got greens of them, you pick that meat up quite a lot. So.
That's going to be in the hams a lot too, because your hams are going to, yeah. But when you're talking about your ribs, you're close to those arteries, you're close to, it's right there with all the blood. You're looking for something in the meat when they're cooking it off. You're going to try to get your best to get that reddish color in your ribs. Yes, sir.
So that goes for pork shoulder as well?
Yeah, pork shoulder too. That's a good point.
This is from the University of Ontario.
If you've got,
It says it affects the moisture content of the meat as well. The higher the pH.
the higher the pH, the higher the moisture content. Okay, it's going to be better flavor. So you're looking at the back of the rib for the fat, that packed fat in there, and you're looking for the marbling on the top, and you're also looking for thickness. I always kind of look for just compare them all. But usually, if it's a whole spare rib, you're looking for 4.5 to 5 pounds. Anything under 4, it better be kind of short and stubby and thick. But I usually buy ribs that are under 4 pounds. It's called 4 and up or 4 and down. That's another way of putting it. But 4 and up and 4 and down, I want 4 and up. Okay, I want something that's 4 pounds and up. If you're gonna buy this, you can buy what's called a St. Louis cut. Does anybody know what a St. Louis cut is? It's basically what a St. Louis cut is, where you've taken off this little brisket off the top, and now you've got just the ribs only. So you've taken the brisket off, this little side, got your rib tips, and you've got your just isolated with, kind of looks very similar to a loin back now. So they're almost identical price. I mean, because they're charging you to take off that brisket, and the St. Louis cut rib is about the same price as a full rack of spare ribs. And I use those. I'll smoke that brisket either for rib tips, or I'll keep it in for soups. I'll smoke it on there and I'll freeze it, put it in a soup, and it's great for beans, whatever you want to do, because there's a lot of flavor in that. So. Okay, so now I'll take this rack of ribs out. And sometimes there's a little flap still left on it. If you've ever seen a whole hog, that's just basically the inside of the area. So we're going to take that off first, and then we're going to take off the little membrane off the back. Use a paper towel or a napkin, but something that you know is going to draw moisture. So I'm going to take this here. Paper towels work great. Napkin works good because you just want something that's going to grab. I come from the side. I get a hold of this piece of membrane right here, and I basically just kind of rip it down, get a good hold of it, and it comes right off. Okay, all the way down. Okay, once you've got that off and cleaned up, you can see underneath it pockets of fat that are still there. Okay, this was the leaner one, has a little bit, but the other one, the students are actually going to use that for competition tomorrow. It's going to be really packed full of fat. So we're going to clean this up, get it ready. If you want, I like to keep it really, like mise en place, I like to keep my ribs the same way. I like to keep it a little bit more orderly, so I'll trim off the little piece off the end. I'll smoke it, and I might give it to some nice lady walking, because it seems like whenever I'm smoking outside, I get these power walker ladies that come around my neighborhood, and they go, oh my God, are you smoking? Crazy, what are you doing in the daytime? Good to see you, how are you doing? You got anything in there? And I'm like,
that's the arm candy
so
part of the
here,
equation.
yeah.
That's not the food.
So I always have these little pieces, all these that I'll cook up. They're really thin. I'll have ready, and I'll say, yeah, come on up. I've definitely got some. Go ahead.
How's the wife feel about that?
Hey, I'm making friends with the neighbors. As long as I don't invite them in or anything, we're good. But so now we're going to kind of take off this little brisket side here. So it's basically, you can kind of feel it. You just cut it right along the gristle, okay? I use a little bit thicker knife, something that's got a little bit more oomph to do it. But basically what we're going to do is we're going to just go right along the cartilage, kind of measure it along. I'll do a practice kind of run so I know where I'm going to be at. I've done it so many times that I know if I cut along that area, it's going to go. So I do a little practice cut so I don't go saw cutting and it's all over the place. I do one all the way down, and then I follow that cut straight through the cartilage, and this comes right through the cartilage. You have a nice sharp knife. This goes right down. You're not cutting through the bone. It's just this little piece of cartilage that joins that brisket to the actual bone part of the rib. So now you've got this piece here, and I don't ever leave it that size. I usually will cut it into good chunk pieces that I can put in a soup or freeze. And you just kind of cut it in half, just like that. And it's just all it is just big cartilage. It's white cartilage. Cut it into chunks. One of my kids actually really likes to chew on these, so I'll cook them for him. And they keep in the fridge. And again, they're great for soup because you can just stick them like a ham hock after you've smoked them. I don't ever cover these. I'll just leave them in the smoker. When they get pretty good and tender, stick them in a Ziploc bag, make soup with them. I'll give them to the power walkers that are walking around. Okay, now we have a nice rack of ribs, okay? Ready to go. You're all set, okay? You're gonna lightly season on both sides. Again, you can use a peanut oil. You can use mustard. It has a little bit of vinegar in it. It's gonna break it down as a binder. Different things, but I just put the rub right on it. I use pretty much the same rub I use on a pork, something a little sweeter. You can also shake a little bit of cayenne on there for a little bit of a kick, like a little bit of spice for your ribs, not very much. But other than that,
Sugar too, like you would with the brisket, or?
you don't want too much sugar because it's such a thin piece of meat. You're being very careful with this. Smoke time, I usually put them on, let them about 2.5 hours in the smoke, then I wrap them. I'll wrap them in a little apple juice, a little bit of parquet or butter, some brown sugar, some honey, enough to keep them. You want to liquefy it. You want a little bit of liquid in there with that apple juice. Wrap them up tight in foil, and then place some meat down back on the smoker. Okay. One thing I can tell you also, with all three of the meats that we've covered, you could finish them in your oven. I mean, if it's freaking cold outside, bitter cold, or bitter hot for that matter, but if it's bitter cold and you don't feel like being on your smoker, once you've wrapped them, as long as you have consistent heat and you watch them, and I would prefer a convection oven, but if you wrap them, you can put them in a pan, like one of those disposable like pans, just like that size here. Stick them in your oven, 275, 250. Don't go too high because you don't want to scorch it in there, but just finish it off in your oven, finish your briskets off in your oven, finish your pork butts off in your oven. Makes your house smell great. People walk in your house and like, this smells great in here because you smoked it off. It's all wrapped up. It's consistent heat. It's a great way to finish things off. You don't want to use fuel.
What about temping? Like temping a rib's like the biggest pain in the.
Great point.
Whatever.
Well, with ribs, it's almost like a stopwatch. You learn your smoker. You know what you're doing. At the end of the day, when you learn how you're cooking, and that's the biggest thing, is learning your smoker. On my particular smoker, I know exactly it's going to cook at 275 for 2.5 hours. I'm going to wrap them. It's going to go for another 2.5 hours in the foil. I'm going to open them up, flip them back over, glaze them. It's back on the smoke for about 5 minutes, and they're ready to serve. Okay. When I am doing ribs, okay. Why don't everybody just kind of come up for this one, because this is going to be hard to stand if you don't see it. Come up here. Come up here. This is important for your ribs. You guys could probably stand right there in the front row and see it. Come over a little bit. You can come behind me and stuff. You're good. Okay, so when I've had the ribs wrapped, okay, and they're going to be meat side down here, and I've opened them up in the foil, okay, and I'm looking at them. You'll start to see the bones starting to come through a little bit. The bones started out like this, flush, and now they've pulled through. You see the little tips of the bones coming through, okay? Okay, when you have that tip of the bone coming through, that's one of the signs it's getting close to being done. People can use a temperature thermometer, and they can say, oh, ribs are always done at 192 or 195. That's baloney, because there's so many different thicknesses of ribs, there's tightness of ribs, there's all kinds of variables, but one always works. The second or third bone right here, I usually take this bone off, so we'll just take it off because it's too flat. But it's when I know I have a certain rib, I'll just take that thing off. So now it's the second bone in. So this bone's here. When I can take this finger, my middle finger, or the second finger, and I can pull up that bone, or the second or third right here, and I can pull that rib up with it, and the whole rack comes up, it ain't done. Okay? Now, when I can pull up that rib, and I can feel that rib about to pull through that membrane, and if I even go a little higher, I know it's going to pull through, that rib is done, you're finished, it's great. That is true on a rib that thick or this thick or whatever. Okay? When that bone's gonna pull through, when I lift that second or third bone with that finger, it's done. I mean, that's the easiest way to explain it. There's so many guys sit there with a toothpick and they poke and prod and they have a temperature gauge and do things. But if you take that second bone up, and I think I've won, what, like at least 35 championships in ribs in these competitions, and I was number 8 last year out of 8,000 teams. I know ribs, that's one of my specialties. And what I've never done anything crazy, tempt or anything, it's just that one bone, it comes up and it's done. It's gonna be perfect, it's gonna be velvet. You don't want fall off the bone ribs, ever. You want to take a bite of that rib and to be dry, the bone is dry and it still stays on that meat. That's perfect rib. It should be like velvet, it should just taste like bacon, it should be perfect. The bone should not slip out, but the bone should be dry. There's about a 10 or 15 minute window. Once you learn that, like a stopwatch. You know your smoker, done, finished, pull the bone up. Everybody's gonna think you're genius. Mic drop, okay? We're done, okay? Anybody have any questions on the ribs?
You took the last bone off, like the leaner end.
I take it off. I take that last bone off because it's a trash bone. There's
like
nothing on it. It's got this piece of fatty gristle that's just chewy. I give it to the power walkers. Seriously, I put that back on there, and they'll sit there and walk around the neighborhood, back and forth. You see them chewing on bones. Dogs are chasing them.
It's the walking while they're eating all of
Yeah, exactly. They're having a good time walking, eating ribs. That's my dream. Walk
How
around
long
eating
do you
ribs.
put the rub on before you put it on?
A lot of people put it on. It's such a thin piece of meat to me, and I love the flavor of bacon. You don't need a lot of. I use a good amount of rub on it. But I maybe season like for an hour before and let it sit. And the ribs are cold when they go on, but I want them to sweat that rub on, so I'll leave them sit on the counter for about 45 minutes with the rub. They're still gonna be pretty chilly, but I'm not looking for a huge smoke ring on it. I am smoking for color. I'm looking for a specific color, and 2 hours on the smoke usually gets it. If you have a really smoky smoker and it's getting a lot of smoke, be careful,